Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Unresolved Textual Tension. Today, we are tying the knot. Maria, in this beautiful marriage story called Bride by Allie Hazelwood. And here today is just my one co-host, Maria. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Katie. How are you doing this morning?
Maria, what other book have we read by this author?
So we read Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood, and we had a decent time with it. There were some issues, but you know, I think for both of us, we found it much more enjoyable than we thought we were going to, and it wasn't a me type of book, but Katie found it quite satisfying, or outside of the dumb sex scenes.
Yes.
You know, we poked fun at that. It was basically just Adam Driver.
I mean, it was. His name is Adam. He looks like Adam Driver.
He was Adam Driver. It was inspired by Kylo Ren fan fiction. It is what it is, folks.
That being said, though, the book was relatively decent, as in, there weren't any, besides that one bizarre sex scene where he, takes her hand and sticks it on his groin and is just like, can you feel how much I want you? May no man do that.
I literally blocked that from my memory and you just brought it back so viscerally. I'm angry.
Look, I'm fine with that staying in the bedroom, but the thing is when you write that on a page, type it on a page, whatever, put it in a story, it's a little hammy and it doesn't come across very romantic. It's more gross. So anyway, besides that scene though, the book was relatively fun. It felt kind of
harmless.
It was well balanced for the most part. You know, there wasn't any egregious errors up until the end. This book, however,
got egregious all over. Egregious from the start to the finish.
Look, everyone, come close. Come close. Come close. No, I want you to understand this. We took one for the team on this one. Right?
We did.
We did this. We should have never opened this vault into this world. Come a little closer. This is one of the most disgusting books I have read in a hot second. I think the last time a book made me feel like it slapped me in the face with a wet fish, like Amanda Bynes style, if you're an American or watched all that and that on Nickelodeon, slap in your face right with a giant trout. That's what the sex scenes in this book felt like.
Oh boy. And this book also just, so yeah, and let me preface this. I'm just gonna say, come closer.
Yes. Tell us.
It's okay. If you're into the way the sex scenes work in this book, it's okay. I want you to know that I respect you still. I support you. I'm not here to yuck your yum. But
leave if you don't want to hear this.
So first off, no, here's the thing. I do think you'll enjoy listening to us process the thing you like. It's kind of like when you watch someone engage with a really weird show you love, you get because you've watched it the whole way through, and you just love seeing people's reactions to things out of context. So I imagine you might have that experience watching us.
Fair assessment, Maria. Yes. So if you are interested in engaging in that sort of foreplay, please join us today on this discussion. However, Maria,
I'm also going to argue that it just, as a book, fails. Oh my god, this fails miserably. If you are here for just porn with a smattering of plot and you don't actually care about plot holes, consistency, politics being well portrayed, or actually the paranormal side of paranormal romance, you'll probably be, if you're okay with nodding, I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to explain it right now, but if you are okay with nodding, just coming out of nowhere in a series that has taken its paranormal side of its romance.
Indeed, coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, this book is wild. It is the most, lackluster paranormal romance, and yet at the same time, it commits to an alpha and omega, it commits to an Omegaverse thing that I didn't think it was going to do.
She plays very mature at first. At first, it seems like she's not going to go that far with it. At first, it has the tone of something that's not that kinky. But then, yep, there it is. It pops right there.
And you're like, what the fuck? Just because There's such a total whiplash halfway through the book. Like, just halfway through the book's like, I know we've been pretending that this is actually about a plot and a missing person and politics, but no, that was all fake. We're just here for porn. We're just
like
here
I said,
for the scenes.
To Maria before, it's like those, I see a lot of comic strips where people will like start off and it seems like there's like a whole, or you know what? No, forget the comic strips. It's just like porn. It's where you have the lady in the lemon bush stealing the lemons, and there are two people and they're saying, "Why are you stealing from my lemon bush?" For those of you that have seen the lemon bush pornography, you understand what I'm saying. But nonetheless, there seems to be a plot. We can also equate it with like, ma'am, I brought you a pizza delivery, or I'm here to fix your pipes. And there seems to be some type of setup. And then all of a sudden, mushing. Just mushing.
It's really wild because we haven't dealt with one that is this. And also, outside of one scene in the last book was it literally
so
had
different.
one scene, one chapter that was le porn, and outside of that it was the plot. And now granted, that was a very slice of life set in academia, you know, and it was one of those like misunderstanding plots, which this one, let me tell you, Allie Hazelwood loves her misunderstandings where the main character thinks the male love interest is in love with somebody else for way too long for no reason. Like, she loves it. Bread and butter.
And then when the character does realize it, understandably so, because you picked up on all the things that she is actively in exposition telling you she also picked up. She's like, "Ah, you love me." And then he's like, "What?" Wait, how did you say it yesterday, Maria?
And let me find it. It was pretty good.
It's exactly the tone of his response.
Yeah, it's like, there's literally a point where there's a scene and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna leave you like this so everybody can smell your mind." And then literally 20 minutes later, he's like, whoa, who said love, bro?
Yes. Yes, that is exactly. He literally, I almost feel like he crab walk backs, like fully scrambles back, and is just like, "Oh, cuties!" Like, it's bizarre. It is schizophrenic.
Insane. And also, I'm just gonna. Katie has mentioned this a couple times in our discussion back and forth, but this main character is just the main male love interest is just a cardboard cutout of a lumberjack who happens to be a werewolf.
Yeah. Oh, could you also imagine what he looks like? I had no idea what he looked like, really. I know it says he has like buzzed brown hair or black hair or something.
And then he's big and burly, that's it. And he has green eyes.
You know what I was like picturing the entire time? I was picturing, there's a character I'm thinking of, but basically super plain Jane Ken doll. Like, I just was picturing, oh yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, he's kind of like husky Ken doll. And that is all he's good for, is looking pretty.
And it's crazy because as much as this author tries to give our main male character a personality, because she gives him interests, she gives him stuff, it is superficial in the way, like, Feyre likes to paint.
Exactly like that. It's like, oh, he has a book of architectural drawings. Oh, he was an architect. Oh, he lived in Europe. But then he has no personality in dialogue. He does nothing but love the main character, except for that random moment where he, and forgive me, I said schizophrenic earlier, I meant a total psychopath. He was a psychopath in the way he, like, spurned her. And then in the end, like, it just doesn't, it just,
And I'm just gonna say, real quick, when I started this, I was just really disappointed because the cover gives you the idea it's kind of going to be like a little bit more of a dark paranormal, and the tone of this book, the narration style, is just almost exactly the same as the previous book, like narration style. Like, she has one way to narrate and describe stuff, and it is a first person girl, like female perspective that just is like, that has like witty narration and line delivery.
And while I'll say this, she's incredibly skillful at that. Like, she is really, really good at, like, drawing in these almost ADHD-like thoughts that come to this character, but yet it still kind of relates to that moment. And it is comedic. I mean, it's nothing like I'm going to belly laugh outside of the book, but like it did, like there were moments like where I was like, oh, that's like clever, but every character is like that, just at varying levels.
And the tone is just wildly. You look at the cover, you here's a story about like werewolves, vampires, humans as different factions, and like the a very important daughter of the vampires is marrying like one of the head pack leader alpha werewolves, and you think like, ooh, okay, and then it's just like a girl being like, you want me to marry who? Who even thought that was a good idea? Are you drunk, Dad? Like, it's just like, that's the tone of the narration. And like, there's a point where the first chapter is her getting ready for her wedding, and she's like, the makeup artist was just a freaking Picasso with my face. Afterwards, I was like, oh my God, you're so talented, but who is that in the mirror? You know, like, it's not somber, it's not foreboding, there's no, it's the same type of narration you would expect for just like a standard rom-com setup.
Also, somebody needs to slap the pity dick out of her mouth. It's because poor protagonist is just, she's sacrificed constantly, and she's constantly in trouble, and everybody's constantly trying to hurt her, and only her real friends that she makes along the way actually care for her and see how she's been abused, so that way they support her and stand up for her, and instead of her taking agency and doing anything, they come into the picture and protect her, because we need big men like her brother and like her husband and like their male friends to stand up for her. Because if you notice, not a single woman has much of any agency in this.
I think you have a pretty good idea, dear general watchers, how we felt about it. So let's get into the premise, because we've talked a lot. So this book is a paranormal romance set in a world where we have werewolves, vampires, and humans in a modern setting, and each faction kind of has their own territories, and they live on barely sustained political truces, or just here's the divisions between our lands. You stay on that side, I'll stay on this side. But there's still like war on vampire crime, and the humans and the vampires have an alliance. And our main character is Misery Lark. I hate that name.
I want us to revisit the moment where we get told why she's named Misery, and how fascinating, honestly, it is that she wasn't named by her parents. She was named by a council, and she was named by this council because of the way their social structure works. I'm sorry, pause. That's fascinating. Why didn't we explore that part? Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
There's very little world building exploration. But anyway, Misery Lark. She previously was so one of the ways peace is kept between vampires and humans is they do collateral swaps, where they will take an important child from a high up vampire family and a high up human family, and they swap them, and they live in each other's territories for like 7 years, from like 10 years, from 8 to 18. And Misery Lark was that girl. She was the collateral. And now her father's like, I need you, even though it's been years since then and you weren't our first or second choice. You have to marry the head of the Alpha Pack of the Southwest region. And so that we can keep peace between our people, because a new lady got voted governor, and she's fucking with my plans because I'm a machinator. That's her dad. And now you have to marry this guy. And so then Misery Lark marries the alpha of the Southwest Pack, and things ensue. Also, her best friend's missing, and she's trying to find her. But yeah, that's the premise of the book. You would think, given that there's like political tensions, divisions amongst these different, there's like deaths and stuff like that, there'd be a little hint of danger, a little hint of darkness, a little something to sink your teeth into, if you don't mind the pun.
No, we get day baths, and we get peanut butter.
Also, let me spin this to you a different way. A City Slick computer programmer goes into the rural southwest to live in the mountains with her rugged and very rural-esque lumberjack man who helps her live a simpler life and get more in touch with her emotions. And then together they have to save the town. For those of you that haven't read this, that it's basically a Hallmark movie.
You know what's funny is that I wouldn't have described it that way, but that's literally exactly what I felt. Oh my god, you're making me heat up and sweat. That was very funny because it is exactly on point.
It is so it's so annoying. And and she comes in under false pretenses and misunderstandings, but together they save the town. And
yes.
It is, and then she chooses not to go back to the big city, but to live with him in the rural mountain lake house.
Yeah, and we can easily just put the fill in for the vampire stuff into like people who want to invest in the land in the country and take over for commercial purposes, and they think she's there to scout it out because she's from the big city. And oh my god, yeah.
No, it's insane. It's if Hallmark decided to write a paranormal romance and they were like, well, what if we just took this and put it on top of our normal thing and gave because the tones are the same. It's, if any of you have seen a couple of the Christmas Hallmark movies that were floating around. There's that one with Lindsay Lohan, the one about the snowman who comes to life.
No, it doesn't have that one. That one's weird. But yes, I get what you're saying.
But the tone of it, it's got this silly, not taking things seriously tone, except for the romance portion.
I feel like that's a pretty solid premise. So if you're interested in that, stop now and go read the book.
Yes, and if you're interested to hear us absolutely rip apart how it I guess it works as a Hallmark movie, but not as anything other than that, stick around. But yes, Katie, bring us in. Give us the plot.
All right, everyone. We're starting out in the urban world of Human Zone. We've got our main character, Misery.
Dumb name.
We'll just, it's fine.
We hate it.
And so she is a white hat hacker-esque working for a large computer company chick. And she has a shitty coworker who's super, not masochistic, shame.
Misogynistic.
Misogynistic.
There's the word we're looking for.
Who's super misogynistic and such, and blah, blah, blah. And then in comes Misery's father's right-hand woman. And she, is like, Misery, your father needs you. And Misery's like, bitch, why'd you show up at my workplace?
On the one day I'm in the office instead of working from home.
And then the misogynistic guy's like, oh, is that your MILF? And then
Gross.
MILF lady shows her fangs and he's like, vampire, we're being invaded by vampire, and then runs off. And then Misery's like, oh, great, I liked this job. First of all, no, she didn't. It did not sound like she liked this job. Second, it's frustrating. It's because this is the first instance of many instances where people just don't give a shit about Misery, and it's annoying the way she doesn't stand up for herself.
Yep.
But anyway, she gets hooked and reeled into going back into the vampire zone where her father is.
In a giant skyscraper called The Nest.
I'm just tired of vampire, HQs being called The Nest. I've heard that a million times, you know what I mean? It's not fresh. But, so she gets reeled in, and we're given a little bit of backstory going on. We know that she, Misery, was treated as collateral in the past as a young girl. She and her twin, Owen, right? Is that what his name is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She and her twin...
Please note, you heard that correct. Her brother, her twin brother's name is Owen, and they named this poor bitch Misery.
I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that's pretty bizarre. You would think that other people's names, too, would have some type of different significance and, uniqueness to it. But no, she's just named Misery.
His name is Owen. like frat dude in a business track degree,
Yeah, that's Owen. And we have Misery. And so we're given a little bit of background information in these moments, where we know, as I said, Misery was used as basically a hostage for the humans, and she lived there her entire childhood life and was super abused constantly. She had to file down her fangs to fit in, always hid her ears, all that whole speciest stuff. And so, and it's very apparent that her family doesn't give a fuck about her. I mean, her brother, maybe, but it's not even portrayed that way in this little background bit. The only person in the whole wide world that loves Misery is her best friend, Serena, who was a orphan in the human world that was given to Misery as a playmate. And they grew up together and then got apartments together and then split apart. And the last interaction they had was a big powwow.
By powwow, she means a fight.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not a party. Not a Native American
not a meeting.
Gathering.
Yeah.
They had a big fight. And basically, after I get over this part, Maria, I want you to take command. But I'm sorry. I'm not going to say that. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to withhold my hatred for this. Anyway, you get this background about all of her lifestyle, that she's become accustomed to living in the human world, and she kind of likes her independence. And lo and behold, Daddy Dearest asks her to come back. And after all this time, after being a hostage, after being abused, after being spat upon by the vampire society because she was too human, she's a, as they like to call her, human fucker, she is asked by her father.
Her father is a council member, like the head council member of the Vampire Council, because they don't have like senators or governors or shit. They have a Vampire Council, and he is like the big dick of the council. It be swinging around, and he is like, daughter, and she's like, Papa, who I barely like. And he's like, I need you to marry a werewolf. And she's like, Papa, say what?
You know what I did like in this moment? And I thought we were going to... I have to give it to Allie Hazelwood. Because in this moment, I really like... It's one of the few instances where I feel like Misery successfully stands up for herself. Because when she's in this meeting with her dad, she's like, phone, you have 10 minutes with me, go. And that's all you get from me. And I was like, oh, I like that. It kind of fits her business attitude and everything, And then, we find out, Maria, what?
There had been in the past marriages between the werewolves and the vampires that were basically just hostage collateral swaps, but they decided to frame them as marriages for some reason. Also, please note, vampires don't get married anymore. They have such a hard time reproducing that monogamous relationships have completely fallen out of fashion for vampires. You fuck around and you find out. However, like, the vampires are going extinct. They do not reproduce by infecting people. They must make the babies, and it's kind of like... it's the babies, they just ain't happening. There's some hardcore fertility issues, and but they have previously in the past done marriage swaps with, and it never explains to you why with the humans we just swap children for collateral stuff.
Wait. Something just occurred to me. Why would you, if your fertility rate is so low and it's really like a core concept for them socially to try to reproduce and make sure that their lineages go on, why would they ever allow a woman as collateral? Why would they ever, depending on how many women and men there are, I guess that's also it, but why would they ever allow a single member?
Even if there's less men, you still, like, one man can make a lot of babies, where women are, like, we're stuck by 9-month cycles and, like, the recovery time in between. And we don't even know what vampire gestation is like. It could be even worse. But anyway, you're right. It makes no sense. Also, why would you marry I don't get why with the werewolves, because, like, the vampires and humans have been kind of in a truce, kind of allies for the past 100 years doing these collateral swaps. And the implication is that previously, in the past, there was marriage swaps with werewolves where we would marry a vampire to a werewolf even though they hate each other. There's a lot of speciesism. There's a lot of just like bad blood, a lot of deaths on both sides. And so why aren't you just doing collateral swaps with the werewolves? Why are we doing marriages? But anyway, the last wolf vampire marriage that ever happened resulted in the Aster, where during the marriage party, the wolves attacked the vampires, and vampire blood is purple and werewolf blood is green, and so it was called the Aster by the vampires, and everybody's like, damn, we can't do that again. And that was within Misery's life, but also long enough ago that nobody even thinks about doing a marriage between werewolves and vampires. But Papa Lark is he's a little he's quaking in his boots a little because there's a new governor coming to town, and the governor doesn't like him and doesn't want to do the collateral swaps anymore with the Chillins. And so he's like, damn, what if this governor tries to make a new alliance with the werewolves? I need to make an alliance with the werewolves first. And the new alpha of the Southwest Pack is a really good guy. Some vampire children ended up in werewolf territory, and lo and behold, they were not killed and assassinated and torn up into little bits. They were brought back and being like, hey, take better care of your children. And Papa Lark was like, oh wow, this guy must be like looking for peace. And the new alpha's like, yeah, I am looking for peace. And he's like, why don't you marry a vampire? And he's like, yeah, I guess that's a really good idea for peace. And now Papa Lark is like, we asked 2 other vampire ladies, they said no, so it's up to you, Misery. And Misery's like, absolutely not, I'm leaving. And Papa Lark is like, well, I guess I have to tell Moreland that you said no. And then our girl's like, Moreland? Moreland who? What's his first name? And Papa Lark's like, Low Moreland. And she's like, never mind, Dad, I'll do it. So immediately you're like, ooh, why does the name Low...
What a great hook. That is actually a really good hook. It's like, wow, she was so adamant. And again, I actually liked the scene where she was fighting against her father, and I felt like they were both characterized fairly well. There are some things like I felt like could be better, but when she says that and she changes her mind instantly to the point where her father's even shocked, I'm like, all right, we got something going. I want to see what this is. But that being said, I would like to I just want to reiterate, again, if they can't reproduce easily, why did he send his female? Why did he send his daughter? If she is the next producer, either his son or his daughter, both of them are baby makers, like in their prime. Like, I just don't understand it. I really don't. It doesn't logically make sense with how much they care about it.
So, unfortunately, this book's world building is very vestigial to the plot.
That's one way of putting it.
Allie Hazelwood is not super interested in going into the intricacies of, vampire reproduction, why vampires are having a hard time reproducing all of a sudden, the situations that are necessary for a vampire. Like, you get told at a couple points that there's, like, sexual differences between the different species, and outside of the fact that werewolves not with their mates.
Only with their mates.
We don't see it anywhere else. There's nothing where she's like, actually, I have an inverted like there's nothing where she's like, we learn about things. So it's just a real weird thing to like kind of harp on. But also, you can't make babies in between the species, which is a really wild thing for the book to be like, that's just fact, when, like, nobody's, like, as far as you know, at this point, tried it. It's not like... This, cross mating happens all the time.
It would. Realistically, it would. It's an urban setting where you can cross borders, and I'm sure there are plenty of kinky people.
People are just horny.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. People always want to fuck things. Like, people, again, I just read an article where 14 young boys, unfortunately, sexually assaulted a donkey and got herpes or something like that. I don't know. It was wild. But the point is people in real life are fucking animals. Are you telling me somebody wouldn't be interested in a not kink? Or like, wait, I'm sorry. That's with mates only. With a big dick daddy wolf kink? Or like or cold, sexy vampire kink, like, or warm-blooded human ruffian kink. Like, of course there would be babies interspecies.
Yes, and like the idea that, because eventually at some point the book's going to tell you in Europe, the species intermingle way more regularly, and so there are cases of crossbreed babies in Europe but America just didn't know about it. And America's so closed off, and nobody has sex with each other, so it just has never happened in America. But also, humans make porn about it. You learn very early on that humans make porn about the different species doing stuff together. Anyway, also, despite living around each other and having the fucking internet for so long, humans are like, are you allergic to garlic? Do you have to be invited into a room? Do you, like, how are we this ignorant about functioning, sentient, humanoid species living in proximity for this long? Long enough that we have computer hacking, programming, cell phones, iPhones.
Also, you can't tell me. So she's about also, like, within all of this, there's a lot of, like, little miscommunications and stuff about wolf culture and vampire culture and human culture, especially, like, after she gets married. And I find it incredibly unbelievable that she, that being said, Misery, with all of her computer and technological skills, wouldn't Google things about wolf culture before getting married to a werewolf.
This book tries to justify it where, like, they're like, we have to keep our secrets to keep ourselves safe. We're all very private. We keep to ourselves. Unfortunately, y'all don't understand how the fuck internet works and Reddit. Do you know there would be r/werewolf puberty? Yes! Or r/mate? And so, because the idea is she'd have to hack into the r/nodding. She doesn't, like, this book pretends that if you had these 3 different species, at no point teenagers would have been like, something weird is happening to my body, what is happening? And then nobody else would have been able to read it. It's trying to imply that, like, they have cybersecurity walls surrounding each of these, even though they're all next to each other in America. It's just insane.
We gotta get past the scene.
Yes, we
gotta get past the scene.
Okay. So, she there's that whole, like, what's his name? Lo Moreland. And the reason she's interested is her friend Serena, who we mentioned before, has gone missing. She's been missing for, at this point, like, 6 weeks, and she's getting hecking worried. And her only lead is the name Lo or L Moreland. And we don't have a lot of details about this now. We just know she's looking for Serena.
I want you all to know, the reason she has this little clue going on is she goes to her friend Serena's apartment, and her recently adopted cat is there all by herself, no food, very hungry. And she realizes her friend is missing, and she searches the entire house apartment, the entire apartment up and down, and can't find a single clue. But then one day, the cat is playing with a crunched up thing on the floor, and it just so happens to be a ripped out piece of paper that's in the secret butterfly language that they made up as kids, which is just like, you know, kid language, code language. And it's the L.E. Moreland. That's all that's written on it. And it's in her planner page. And Serena is a journalist. And so that's what gets Misery basically thinking, oh, she went missing. She was on, like, some secretive job with her journalism and stuff. But can I just say first of all, how did she miss a piece of trash on the floor? That would stand out so much, unless this house is filthy. And second of all, when did Serena have time to write this down specifically in the coded language for Misery, crumple it up, and just randomly throw it on the floor? Like, I don't understand the logistics.
And also, what kind of planner pages are these? Because, like, most planners have multiple day things, and so is it just that written on the whole page? Is there other stuff? Why is she writing in her personal planner in their code language. There's a lot of pieces here. But anyway, our girl, she's looking for L.E. fucking Moreland. And now she's like, oh my god, Alpha of the Southwest Pack region is Low Moreland. I need to fucking marry this guy because I can't just send him an email being like, my friend is missing, and the name L.E. Moreland was written in her thing. And because Low, the main character, would have immediately been like, yo, how did your friend know that name? Let's meet. Like, I don't understand.
Bro, like, I didn't even think about it that way. I was like, oh, that makes sense why she'd marry. No, it doesn't actually. You're right. There's no way with this modern day setting, she couldn't have just shot him a memo.
Or been like, asked. It's just, it makes zero sense. This book is working off of paper thin logic. It really is. And there's a lot of, you have to suspend your disbelief so bad. Like, so high. You're basically what's that bridge in the Golden Gate Bridge? You're basically pulling that off.
You have to be horny enough to suspend your disbelief this much to get into it.
Yes.
So anyway, that's why she decides, yes, I'm going to get married. And as Maria said, she gets all dolled up. Oh my, she now looks so beautiful because usually she's just plain Jane. Of course she's not. She just thinks that of herself. And then also the person who's putting her makeup on is like, oh, let me dab these like tribal symbols that are like super kinky for the werewolves. And I'm sorry, I just feel like based off her character.
It's not even that. It is just green makeup that makes it look like she has green blood at gland points.
Jesus, that's so strange. But anyway.
Why does this human makeup artist have this? Why is she like, it'll drive him crazy?
And why is she invested enough to do that for like Misery? Or how does she know that in general? I mean, you don't have to answer all that. That's being kind of nitpicky, but nonetheless, it's there. And my point is though, based off the way Misery's been described so far, I kind of feel like she would have rubbed that off or told her not cut that out or something like that, unless she was trying to seduce him, and she wasn't trying to seduce him. Which doesn't make sense. Actually, she should try to seduce him because that she's looking for information and she's trying to be snoopy, but she's just not that type of character. And they get into the wedding. She comes down the aisle. We get that cliche moment where he turns to see her and he's super hot and he inhales.
And he's like,
he inhales, his nostrils flare. And we all know what's happening.
Oh,
we
God.
all know. Because he looks at her surprised, and she's like, "Oh, he must hate how I look
and how I smell." Because at one point he pushes he's like right in front of her, and he's like, "Why do you smell like this?" And she's like, "Oh God, I guess I smell stank ass to werewolf."
No. What I would ask is, smell like what? What do I smell like?
Yes.
Like, what is it that you're... No, she never asks that. She just assumes, oh, I'm a stinky wench.
I'm a stinky little bleach, which is a comment, a term we'll get to later. But anyway, yeah. And you immediately, if you've dealt with any werewolf shit, or, I don't know, read Akatar, or Akamath, or any of those books, where like, the mating bond snaps into place, you're like, oh, man... them pheromones and I at first thought that this was an interesting thing where they put werewolf pheromones, that green stuff wasn't just a green tint, because werewolves have green blood, which means, and I just want you to think about this, you know when people blush and their face gets red, or that sun-kissed like stuff, werewolves are green tinted. That means when they blush, their skin turns green. That for a healthy werewolf, I don't think Allie Hazelwood understood what she was doing by giving them green fucking blood.
I mean, I like the concept, forest in the blood, because they're wolves and stuff, yeah. But you're right. And at one point it's even slightly described that way, like it's pointed out that it, I think somebody, I don't remember, it wasn't the Low, but it was somebody else blushed or something, and then it came across as like orange or something like that. I don't remember.
But I thought at first that somebody had put like a pheromone, like a werewolf pheromone, and that he was reacting to that, and that he was like, why do you smell like that specifically? And that we were going to find out that somebody did that, and that's what the initial reaction was, and then that wasn't the case, blah, blah, blah. Nope. It doesn't play with any expectations like that. It's just straight up, she's like, oh, he thinks I'm a smelly bitch, and he's like, she's the most delicious thing I've ever smelled in my life, and at face first, motherfucker.
We immediately cut to a balcony where she's trying to escape everything. It's because she's trying to, like, not be amidst people because she doesn't know anybody and they all hate her. And she's talking with the governor, who's like what's the word I'm looking for? A pedo, not pedo. She, what is the word? Pervert, I guess. A perverted old man. Yeah, that works. That's not what I was looking for. But the mayor is a pervert. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. We'll cut this. I'm dying. This fucking infection is killing me. Anyway, so they're on the balcony. She's speaking with the governor, or is it the mayor?
I think it's like, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, political figure that's perverted and clichély politically, like, blah, 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 gross. And he's like, yeah, haven't you heard? Lowe's mate was sent as the exchange for this over to the vampire side. And she's like, oh, shit, that really sucks that, like, he's being forced to do this type of stuff and that his mate, whatever that means, was sent away. Sucks to suck.
Was he already married?
Yeah, which is, I like that we have some of that empathy at least, but, like, I don't understand why she cares either. Like, because there's a certain level of care given in her internal thoughts where she really feels bad for him. And it is nice to have an empathetic character, so there's nothing really all that wrong with that. But when you have too many nice characters, it's just like, okay, you're all the same person. And there's quite, either you're really, really mean ridiculously in this book, or you're totally in love with misery, or you are misery.
Yep.
So afterwards, I want to point this out too. She's wants to leave, raunchy was the word I was looking for. Anyway, the raunchy old man. And she sees down the stairs that Lo is speaking with other werewolves and such. And so she's like, oh, I don't want to intrude. So she just awkwardly stands there and just waits, which is fine, I guess. And then a fight starts to erupt between two children. And it's over a broken toy. And one's a werewolf child and one's a vampire child. And tensions are high. And also, why did somebody bring kids to this wedding?
Who brought children?
You know it's the author's hand, because immediately after, Lo's like, Lo, handsome, beefy, beefmaster Lo.
Think like Henry Cavill with green eyes and no beard and short buzzed hair.
Yes, exactly that. And he's just like, oh, make sure you say you're sorry. I'm so good with kids. Oh my gosh, I'm even hotter because I'm so good with kids. Now run along. I'm so hot.
I'm even-handed. The werewolf child was the one that broke the vampire child, and I'm like, say sorry, werewolf child. What polite people here. Like, it's just so ham-fisted to be like, ooh, look at him. Him's the nicest boy in the school.
Dreamy man. He's hot and nice and good with kids.
And he's really committed to vampire werewolf peace. And he's also, I somewhere, I think I saw that this book was advertised as enemies to lovers. And like, if you come in expecting that.
It best not be. That is a complete lie. Lo is head over heels for her immediately, and also
and it's so obvious.
Yes, it is so obvious. He also, again, he has about as much emotional depth as the pool I have out back for my dogs. Like, there's nothing to him. Anyway, I won't get on that. So please take us forward.
Yeah, so after that, there's this scene where, like, Lo figures out she's hovering on the stairs, and he's like, I can't understand why you're doing this. You've sacrificed yourself so many times and been used for this. It's like, you don't really belong anywhere. And like, just, like, making these really poignant comments about her life that just, like, you did not get this from the dossier about her. Like, what a weird, and also, like, you don't know this bitch from a bag of rocks. Like, what are we, it's an odd scene that I didn't like.
It's also just really rude. It's just, again, it's
rude.
That pity dick. It's that pity dick in her mouth. Like, he's just like, oh, wow, you've had it so hard. doesn't it suck to be you? And then internally, you know, he's like, oh, I love you so much. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Like, it's very obvious.
Yeah, and she's like, oh my god, I can't believe he was going to say this. You don't know anything about me. But anyway, she moves to the vampire city, and it's not a city. It's a beautiful lake house in
No,
the
not
woods.
vampire, werewolf.
Yes. The werewolf, and now she's living in Lo's house, and she's got the room next to Lo's room, and also she sleeps in the closet because they don't sleep in normal beds, and she's trying to sleep during the day.
Also,
and
hold on, pause there real quick, just on that thought.
Pausing.
So later on, like at the end of the book, we are told, this is a tiny detail, but at the end of the book, we're told that vampires do have beds. They're just styled differently, so that way they're more comfortable. It's almost like I almost imagine like the weighted blankets, you know, like that's kind of like the vibe it has. Like they have like a ceiling that's really low or whatever to the bed. I liked the idea of it, I guess, like that it's just like a more modernized coffin or whatever. I'm sorry. The werewolves are well aware they're going to have a vampire in their midst. Why would they not just purchase realistically speaking, if there was an arranged marriage and they're treating her halfway decently, which they specifically do, they would go out and buy her a bed. Also, she would ask for one. Why doesn't she have one?
And also, why don't they have sun-blocking drapes for during the day, motherfuckers? Like, you know she can't be out in the sunlight. And in this, so the book, real quick, I want to make a point that I thought of, and I don't want to forget it, but it came up previously. Why didn't the werewolf lady have to marry a vampire if she had to marry a werewolf?
Yeah. What the girl Gabrielle that Misery thinks is Lo's mate that was exchanged over to the vampires, she doesn't marry anybody. She's just over there as collateral.
Yes, so why isn't it just a collateral setting? Like it's like Allie Hazelwood wanted all her cake and wanted to eat, like, she didn't just want her cake and to eat it. She wanted all the cake. So there, of course, it was a collateral exchange, but also she had to marry a hunky wolf guy so that there would be times where he could be like, "Why would you say that to my wife?"
I know.
Honey, are we rich? Scene that I hated.
Of course, you're rich. You came from a rich family. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She's not rich, but her family is incredibly wealthy, and she's been living off their funds for the majority until she wanted her own independence and started working, which is fine. But that's a really great point to bring up, by the way. Yes. And so they travel to this beautiful lake house, which is basically like Art Deco, cozy autumn feels.
And it's the type where it's like kind of built to be reflective of the land. And there's one particular architectural style that is designed to be complementary to the space that it's in. And she talks about how like it was like this house was made to be here. But anyway, Katie's very right, because they make sure to have like a fridge for her to have her blood in. And like they're even asking, and again, I don't know how they don't already know this. Why wasn't there a dossier? The one guy is like, do you like O negative, AB blood?
This should have already been documented.
Yes, and also she says no. There's no, once it's blood's cold, there's no real taste difference between. So like, no, I need no preference. Like, why don't we know this? Shouldn't a dossier have been sent, being like, hey, install in her room windows that will protect her from the fucking sun? Because vampires, you find out, love windows. They love natural light. They just have to have special windows that keep the UV rays out from burning them.
Maria, the narration's too busy sucking on that pity dick to give her normal things that would happen in that kind of situation. Instead, she's being used as an object the whole time.
But not just that, the author is in love with the idea that none of these races understand anything about each other despite existing on the same fucking planet forever. They've all been here together this whole time, and they know fuck all about each other. She literally like do you actually turn into wolves? And then somebody asks her like, do you turn into a bat? And she's like, no. How do you not know this?
You are currently hitting the octave that erases your voice.
Yes. But how do you not know this? How do we not have this? And how in these political situations do we not have dossiers that explain all of this?
Even better. Mm-hmm. I mean, not even better. That is actually the basic of what should have happened. And she should have been given a basic, like, rundown on him and such, and what is expected, who his seconds are. Like, she should know these things if she is living there. So she should have been, anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point being is that, we are introduced at this point to a couple of side characters, and one of the side characters' name is Alex, and he's, like, basically the computer professional of the pack. I'm sorry, wouldn't his job be to dig information up on her already? Wouldn't they, maybe it would be like, oh yeah, you prefer this, don't you? And she'd be like, what the hell? And it's like, that wasn't on the dossier. And then he's like,
I've been tracking your Amazon purchases.
Yes.
I hacked into your Amazon account. Like, that is the level that this book could have exploited the setting and the this situation, but it doesn't. It's like, oh my god, Alex is like, are you gonna drain me dry? Do you want to eat me? And like, it just has all these misconceptions about vampires. It's terrified about her. But before we get into the rest of the Were clan, the first scene that happens is she wakes up in the middle of the day and there's a little girl in her room like, this was my room, why are you here? And she's like, I'm bad with kids, I don't know if this is a 3-year-old or an 11-year-old. And you're like,
bitch, you know.
How, what the fuck? Like, do you not, anyway, and it is a little girl named Anna, and Anna is Lo's little sister. At first, our girl Misery is like, oh my god, is this Lo's kid with his mate that got sent away? But no.
That is a fair presumption.
Yes, it is. But no, it's just Lo's little sister who lives with him, and she is rambunctious and funny, and she still has a key into the room, because this room that has a connecting door with Lo's used to be Anna's room, but now it has been given to Misery.
Why was it given to Misery? That makes no sense to me. He loves his sister. He's obsessed with protecting her so much that it's ridiculous in places.
Also, it's a sham marriage. Nobody expects, and frankly, the vampire and werewolf communities would be livid if they found out any schmexing was going on. Like, nobody likes the idea.
Again, why a marriage? But anyway, let's move past that point, because we've already asked that.
Yes.
So we also get introduced to this one scene, which I thought was stupid as hell. Which, there's this kid named Max, he's like 15, and he sees Misery in the hallway, like, immediately, as soon as she, like, is, first day she's there. And Misery is like, sup? And the kid's, like, being super weird. And then...
Super weird. Like, yeah. Like, I almost thought there was something, like, wrong with him?
Yeah. No, he's described like he has dissociative issues. Like he's like hazy and woozy and stuff, and then out of nowhere, which was very eerie and cool, and then he's never that way ever again. Yes. I actually really liked the initial characterization of him, and then he just becomes like a nothing after that, because then, you know, we're focused more so on dick and vagina. But he like slams her to the wall, and she's taking self-defense, which would make sense. It is great. And so she slams him back into the wall, and she bares her fangs, and then all of a sudden all the werewolves are on her, and they're like, see, look, she's already trying to kill somebody, blah 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 blah.
15-year-old, she attacked a child.
And I'm sorry, but they probably know Max is unstable. I presumed they would know Max was unstable and be like, don't touch him, he's like already hurt enough. And she's like, he attacked me and stuff like that. That should have happened in front of the group. Instead, she's taken privately to the side with Lo, and she's like, yeah, I was just protecting myself. And he's like, oh yeah, I know. But it's like,
well, no, not even during the scene. He was like, don't cause trouble. Everybody's like, oh my god, she attacked him. Vanya's like, don't let her near Anna. Or not Vanya. What was the...
Is it not Vanya?
No, Vanya's her dad's lady. The lady,
this is all very confusing for our readers.
The lady who takes care of Anna.
Yeah, I don't remember her name. Anyway, her
Juno.
nanny.
Juno.
Juno is the nanny of the kid.
They're all like, oh my god. And then Lo's like, we're going to have to put some guards on you to keep an eye on you. And she's like, oh my god. And she's like, god, this fucking sucks. I've been here a second. They all believed this kid instead of me. And she legitimately thinks that they all believe him, and she's being tailed, and she now has like guards that watch her all the time, and she's kind of made friends with this one named Mick, who's an older guy, and like she has funny dialogue where she's like, you're my favorite jailer, and then She bonds more with Anna, and then this thing happens. She doesn't spend a lot of time with Lo because he's still being like, oh my god, the smell. And she's like, oh, I smell terrible.
Now we're going to pause at this moment. Misery is stuck in this home for many a day with nothing to do. They don't allow her a computer. Apparently, they don't have TV, and she doesn't like TV. She is reading nothing, I guess. I don't even know if she's provided books. And my question is, how is this a good usage of her as a resource? I would think, with how organized their system is, and also it would be way more interesting of a read, why wouldn't, like, they ask to collect intel on vampire culture? I mean, we don't even have to go that far. But she should be given something to do. Otherwise, she has too much free time. And that's, like, the basis of wanting to snoop. So,
or
like,
also just given stuff to, like, hey, here's a library, here's monitored access to the internet, you know, like, it's just insane.
You can't tell me, Alex, like, I mean, again, I guess you might argue. No, okay, this is what I'll say. What they shouldn't know is that she is really good at hacking or whatever. They should not know that. Nobody should know that. It's because that's like a secret skill of hers. I think
that's
that should have been
what she went to school for.
Well, I just feel like it should be a secret skill of hers. Like, she could be a software engineer or something like that. Her actual job is to, like, try to get past security systems. I say nix that. Get rid of that part of her, because it would make. I feel like it would be more dynamic if she was just a software engineer, but in her free time she white hat, like, hacked, or she just had those skills. It's because she had fun with doing that kind of thing digitally. It's because in the real world everybody hated her, but through the digital world she could be whoever she wanted to be, and that could have been explored, but that was never explored. That would have been cool. But anyway, and then that way, when they're like, oh, you have limited access to the internet, Alex has blocked the websites we don't want you to go on and stuff like that, so here you go, we know you're a software engineer, do your due. And then she could have been like, aha, they don't know I can do this. And then we could even have a series of, like, scenes where she's trying to hack their system and she's having a really hard time hacking the system. And she later learns that it's because Alex built it. Whereas she knows Alex built it later on. It's because prior to any of this, she already tried to hack the systems, which I guess that's fine. But anyway, I just feel like this was so one note.
And this whole initial experience is very, like, boring and aimless. And the next, like, major thing that happens is there's a day where there's, like, a barbecue happening outside, and she gets woken up by it, and she's, like, peeking out the window, spying, and she sees Max talking to Anna and, like, trying to ask Anna to go somewhere with him, and Anna's like, no, I'm not going. And then she's like, I don't like that. That weird guy that attacked me is, like, looking like he's trying to coerce Anna into something, and she's, like, paying attention, and then, like, he grabs Anna and starts dragging her towards the woods, and she's like, protect her, like, woo mode activated.
Why? Yeah. Yes. Why wouldn't she just run out to Lo and tell him?
Yes, or anyone.
No, she runs into the forest, everyone. She runs into the forest while she is frying alive. Why not just go on the porch and say,
put shoes on.
Guys, they're that way. Like,
Max is stealing Anna. You know, no, she barefoot, she goes to find Mick's peeing, and she's like, I've got to rescue her myself. There's no one else.
It's that womb alert. Like, it's just so powerful.
Because literally by the second time, because at first she's like, I don't like kids. Ew, get them out of my space. And then the second interaction she has with Anna, and she was like, I guess the kid's all right. And then she sees this happening, and she's like, my maternal instincts have kicked in. And she runs into the forest. She's scorching. And then, like, other people come out, apprehend Max, and then she's getting yelled at because she ruined their operation because they knew Max was a stinky potato, because there's actually amongst the werewolves a loyalist group who, because the previous alpha named Roscoe was a dick, and our boy Lo challenged him for alphahood, and then he killed Roscoe because that's how you win. And then a bunch of other people tried to challenge Lo, and he defeated all of them. And then all the remaining were like, fuck Lo, he's not a real alpha. We don't like him because he wants to make peace, not war. And so we're gonna create a loyalist group. And Max, they keep getting like the young wolves, the young male wolf boys. And Max is one of them. And somebody arranged with Max to get Anna. And they wanted to see who it was, and so they were laying a plot. They were a trap for Max, and so they were going to let this guy run off into the woods with Anna to see who he met with to trade her off to, and then just attack. And then our girl,
that's not safe at all.
Yes, and they make fun of her because she's like, why would you put her in danger? And they're like, joke's on you, we had 6.
She was never in any danger.
She had 6 people who could see her the whole time. And I'm like,
that doesn't matter. Somebody could slit her throat in 5 seconds.
It's a traumatic experience. That girl knew she was being kidnapped. She's 6 years old.
Yeah, and also, Misery points this out as well, which makes it even dumber. Like, it's like, oh, wow, and I hate how that makes her seem like the only one who cares or cares the right way. And that makes everybody else seem kind of a little dumber and they could learn from her. You know, like, it's so artificially created.
And it's just really fucking frustrating. Like, the whole situation is,
you know
just
what I would have
dumb.
preferred in the scene? And it would have been funnier, too, especially with the tone of this book. I would have preferred that she was told about the barbecue. Because why wouldn't she be? Everybody's going to be at the house. And I think that she should have tried to ingratiate herself. And I think this whole time she should have been trying to ingratiate herself to gather intel, which she is there to do. And so, and the more
especially
she, like,
since she can't access the internet stuff, so her only way to gather intel is through personal interactions.
Instead, she takes day baths and sleeps a lot, and eats peanut butter later. But anyway, and she doesn't even read their books. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna stop. So you know what would have been fun though is if she knew this and she also was being forced or she wanted to. One of the two. I would like it if she wanted to. So I'll nix the forced thing. She wants to be part of the social interactions. So she sets up an umbrella out there and she sits like with sunglasses and sips on like
in one of those like Korean auntie, like to the with those little sleeves that cover your hand. They have the little bells and like the little hat with a ton of sunscreen.
Correct. That's what I think would be cute as hell. It's because then she would be in like a bubble anyway, and she'd be separated from everybody else. And then you could even have a scene where one of the kids try to like get the sun on her by knocking over the umbrella. Or there's so many things you could do with that scene. And it's just, and you could, you know what? I would have preferred one of the kids to be out in the lake and be drowning or something. And then she's like, I'll save. That's really dumb. But my point is like, I think there was more interesting, more homey, more even in tone with the book things you could have done if you just included her in the scene.
And so, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, we knew Max had attacked you because Lo can smell lies, but we all pretended. And this, let me break down the scene for you, okay? The pack knows Lo can smell lies. So when everybody, including Lo, confronts Max and he's like, oh shit, attacked me first. And she's sitting there going, no, I was minding my goddamn business. He attacked me and then I retaliated for self-defense. Everyone in the room knows Lo can smell lies, which means Max immediately should know the jig is up. But no, what they do is they pretend to believe Max to lull him into a false sense of security. There's even a point where she's like, yeah, he said some weird shit about Lo not being a real alpha. And they were like, are you accusing him of being one of the loyalists? And she's like, I don't fucking know what that is. And like, imagine you being a young werewolf who knows your alpha is super powerful and can smell lies and like the ways you and you lie and this other person is telling the truth, but then everybody believes you and is acting in your defense and nobody questions anything. Would you not be like, so a way to make the scene work is to have everybody else confront them and then later have them tell Lo, but not actually Max, or and that way Max is lulled into a sense of security. Because within the rules you've given us, there is no reason Max should have lied and then thought he got away with it and believed this ruse. It's a dumb ruse. But anyway, they were rusing. And they were like, we knew he was walking with the Loyals, and we wanted to see who he was going to work with.
Shouldn't they know if there's only one Loyalist group?
Yep, and who the person, and like they knew it was Emery anyway. It's a really dumb, like, just whole plot scene. But one of the things that does happen, the beginning of the tiny our little sexual crumb, is she's burnt and shivery, and she already has been struggling in this house because it's like 3 degrees too cold for her because werewolves run hotter than vampires. So she's fucking.
Why doesn't she have a
freezing.
separate thermostat in her room
Also,
if they're that rich?
Why didn't she bring, like, I'm going into werewolf territory, they run hotter, let me bring my winter clothes? Like, why would they not be like, and here are your hand warmers, we're working on a thing for your bedroom, like a personal thing for your bedroom, but the rest of the house is going to be cold?
Maria. She's too busy giving the pity dick a hand job.
And so she's sitting there, she's burnt because she was in the sun trying to save Anna, and she's doing a heckin' burning. And then Lo puts his little a sweater that he was wearing on her. Why was Lo wearing a sweater and she not wearing a jacket? I don't know. But anyway, so he puts it on her and she's like in it. And then there's a point where he reaches into the pocket of the jacket to get his cell phone out of the pocket, and and his hand brushes against her breast, and she's like, oh my god, what's happening?
That is very presumptive of him if he's trying to keep distance in any way.
Yes! This is just overall a bizarre scene. But one of the things we learned from this, because they're like, we're gonna have to torture Max to get who his sauce was and who he was going to meet. And she's like, let's not torture the 15-year-old. She's like, I'll thrall him. And this is where you learn. So there's a bunch of like ways in which vampires are different than humans or werewolves. You know, obviously they got purple blood. Their eyes developed differently so they can thrall people by making their pupils go with hypnotics. And you know, they can only drink blood because of a particular thing, but yet they have a normal stomach that can digest peanut butter, but they don't eat, like, it's considered grotesque to eat food because you don't need it to survive in the vampire culture. Yeah, but it also, initially, you think they just can't, like, because, like, the book is really set on giving you the biological differences between them, but mainly the vampire ones, and they are so minor at best that I don't understand the, like, big, oh my god, and you're so different. But anyway, you learn that she can thrall people, which is if she touches someone and then she gets them to maintain eye contact, she can wiggle her eyes very, very fast, that it lulls them into a hypnotic state, and then you can get them to answer questions. So she does it to our boy, and our boy Max, and he spills his guts, which is basically, he doesn't actually know who he was going to meet, but he's pretty sure it was Emery, who's the former Alpha's mate. But, you know, that's it. And this is the beginning of her and Lo kind of talking more and begetting, because, you know, everybody's like, wow, she, like, put herself in danger to help
She's
Anna.
trustworthy now.
And eventually, like, they all, like, there's the big confrontation where he's like, why are you here, and blah, 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 and she's like, my friend's missing, and he's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, because your friend was interested in my sister, which means your friend must have known what my sister was.
Pause. We learn in this moment as well. We're skipping a couple of things, but long story short, she figures out that Anna, the child's full name is Liliana Moreland. And so it's actually Liliana, the child, that Serena, her friend, was looking into.
Because eventually there's this point where, like, her and Lo just have an honest conversation, and she confesses, and he's like, oh, that's Liliana. And she's like, Anna's name is Liliana. And basically you find out that Anna is actually half werewolf, half human. And Lo has been kind of protecting her. And Lo's mom is dead now, but had, back in the day, a fling with this human guy, and then Anna came out, and for the most part, Anna's blood is red. She presents as mainly human for most of her life. She does have some, like, faster reflexes and other stuff, but she can't change at the full moon and go, like, do a howly fun time. or any of that, and they've just kind of been protecting her, but also keeping it a huge secret from everyone.
Let's just bring up the fact that we mentioned earlier as well. They have to keep it a secret because mixed babies are apparently super rare, and it has to be hush-hush.
Everybody thinks it's impossible, and you know, there's a chance that she would be either seen as an abomination people would want to kill, or should be seen as a symbol of peace, and people who wanted war would want to kill her. Like, it's just the dumbest.
Who cares? Who cares? I do not care about that. I've seen that a million times.
Anything. Are you kidding me? How are there not halflings? Just, I can understand the vampires and the werewolves wanting to pretend they don't exist, but can we, as a general society, pretend that just...
I could believe that there are half or like dampfire. How do you say it again? Dampfears? It's the half vampire, half human.
Oh, I didn't know there was a specific term for that.
Yeah, anyway. So the thing is I could see half human, half vampires. I could see half human, half werewolves. Or excuse me. It would make more sense if both mingled with humans. And I would buy that they would not mingle with them with each other, though. It's because of like maybe like I don't know, something. Just because that's also a gimmick so many times as well. So it kind of slides right into that expectation. So that would have been okay too. And if like Anna was half vampire, half werewolf, that would make, I guess, more sense. But I just don't care about this plot device. It's so overused.
And it's just so dumb because it's like, oh wow. Surprise, she's fine. You know, it's not like she's having weird health issues or anything. Though there is one. But she becomes part of the group now. People start joking around with her. Her and Lo are having more interactions. He realizes she likes peanut butter because her and Serena made her try stuff. And she can't really chew stuff. Her molars are somehow ornamental, or she says vestigial. And like, are they soft? If she chews stuff, are they gonna fall out?
Does she just have, like, fangs and then gums?
Like, no, she has molars that are just, like, ornamental molars, so, you know, chewing's not a thing. Like, how much chewing is not a thing? Like, I don't understand this, but anyway, she can eat peanut butter, and she loves it. She's a fucking whore for peanut butter. Oh. And he, like...
I mean, yes. She literally... erotically, in front of Lo, immediately steals a dollop and is like, oh...
And he's like, you know, like, just like, God, this book is so fucking aimless. I'm just, and she makes friends with people. She eats peanut butter. Her and Lo are beginning to, like, flirt. Her and Anna are getting closer. And then there's this thing where, like, now that they're working together, because he's like, your friend probably found out about my sister. If we can figure out why she knew about my sister and who else knows about her, so we'll help you find your friend. And so, like, they're working together and trying to hack stuff. And then there's this whole thing where he has to go to Emery, the mate of the former alpha's house, which is like a normal thing that happens where she has to welcome the new alpha in to show that, you know, she's peaceful and she's not causing shit. And everybody's like, oh my god, Lo, you can't go by yourself. Why would you go by yourself? And he not only is going by himself, but he's trying to set up spyware to see if to get proof that Emery is the one fucking shit.
And instead of taking Alex, the werewolf sidekick that knows how to do all this stuff, he takes somebody in a precarious position, yes, his wife.
But not just that. Originally, he doesn't want to take anyone, and he's going to try go himself. And one of the things you learn about Lo, Mr. Cardboard, because again, he just has like zero personality in dialogue, in scenes. The book tries really hard to tell you he has personality. He lived in Europe for a while. You know, there was a stage where he was kicked out of the pack.
That makes him exotic and sexy.
Yeah, there was a period of time. And also, does he speak German? Like, God, it's so ornamental. But the former Alpha was like, oh, I don't like you when you were a child because I could smell that you were going to be a problem for me, so I sent you away. And he went to school, went to Europe, learned how to be an architect, had sex with humans. So, you know, I don't know why everybody's freaking out about shit. Like, this is... but anyway... goes to Europe, becomes an architect, has a job, lives a whole ass life, and now he's just alpha boy, just alpha. And also, he's in his 20s. I'm so tired of the book being like, a 26-year-old is just the most powerful thing. Like, can't he be 32?
It would be refreshing just purely because it's different. If he were in his early 40s and she were in her late 20s or early 30s, because then there would be a maturity. I mean, like, that's just dynamic.
I'd love it. I would love it. That would have been great. But anyway, no, he's lived a whole ass life, even though he's like 26. Like, I've met 26-year-old, 28-year-old men, and a lot of them just don't. And also women, the shit's just not together yet. Like, the 20s are when you're still figuring your shit out. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, so he's bad at computers. Like, for a 26-year-old who had an architectural job, who went to school in Germany,
who should have surely used computer software for what did he do? Use charcoal and like paper the whole time?
Like, modern architecture does use computer programs. It's insane to me that he's like, no, I just got around with pen and paper. And again, in Germany, a country that is very much that has embraced like modern education systems using computers. But anyway, he's so bad at computers, he writes Google into the web. He writes Google into the Google bar first. Like, it's insane. But anyway, so Alex is trying to train him.
That would be funny if he were in his 40s.
But even then, because like both of our boyfriends are early 40s. Katie.
Oh yeah,
and
I know.
They both can fucking use the computer and Google shit.
I'm just saying that would have extended the believability a little bit.
I mean, yes, I guess a little bit more, but like you would have had to set it in like the 80s for this to really work.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna.
Which would have been great.
I would have loved some 80s werewolf. Oh man.
No. Early
Delicious.
2000s, and he is used to 80s technology.
Yes.
And she's like a hacker in that time, which would be super unique and cool.
I love it. But no, we're in this modern era with a 20-something-year-old that is described as an old man with his relationship to technology. But anyway, he can't do it. His training from Alex isn't going well, so she's like, let me go with you. And he's like, for some reason, he's like, yeah, you can go because you're my wife in our sham marriage. And so like they get to they fly on a Cessna, and this is a scene where I don't have my glasses, but she puts her sunglasses on and she like puts them down to the tip of her nose and she goes, honey, are we rich? And I just hate that scene. So, but it's indicative of the entire tone.
First of all, duh, you already knew that.
You've been living in his fucking house.
And second of all, he drives it himself. They don't have a private pilot, which would be normal. No, there should be a werewolf pilot whose exclusive job is to ferry around important werewolf people or something.
Yeah.
Why
and
would...
also just... He's in his 20s. He's an architect. He had a job. When did you have time to learn how to fly a Cessna?
Even Misery thinks this. And so I'm like, okay, so just because you point it out doesn't mean it makes it okay.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Christian Grey from...
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. But anyway, so they fly off, and when they land in the Cessna, and they get there, there's people coming up, and he goes, before we go out there, I'm going to have to scent you so you smell like me. And she's like, okay, what does that entail? He's like, I'm gonna have to nuzzle you with my scent glands.
Teacher.
Yep.
I have an academic question.
Okay.
Why didn't he just give her some of his clothes that he had worn or some of his stuff to wear on the way to there so she could absorb the smell? Why didn't he make her sleep in his bed or something? There are so many other ways than the way they're about to do, which is Maria.
Oh, God. So to scent her, he has to rub his scent on her at the places where werewolves have their scent glands, and which involves rubbing his face and licking her neck. So, and it starts with him, and it ends up being the first of the overtly sexual scenes. We've had a couple brushes. We've had a couple of, like, ooh, what's this flutter happening kind of thing. And that kind of stuff. But this is the first time, and so he like turns her around and like is nuzzling her neck.
Guys, it's too touchy. It's too touchy, too quick, and she feels hard bulge against her, and it's just like, what? 0 to 100? Are we like?
Yes.
What is happening?
And he's like, like biting her a little, and she's like basically orgasming right then. Like, and the two of them are like near panting by the end of this experience. Like, oh, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've never done that before. And she was like, holy shit. And the thing is, Katie's right in that it does go from 0 to 60, because in a lot of ways, this is one of the best written of the sexual encounters, because it's not like we're not saying the word pussy and cock and like shit like that a ton, and it's like neither of them talk during the experience. He's mainly quiet, because one of the things that Allie Hazelwood struggles with is her main character's talking, her main male love interests talking during sex in a way that just makes you want to yeet the book into the fires of Mount Doom.
Maria, okay, everyone, mini story time. That will take 45 seconds. Many of the sex scenes, first of all, they're all clustered together after you get through like 1/3 of the book. So it's just like, it's basically mini little side quests in between basic pornographic scenes, which are the main missions. And so it's like, how little can we write in between this encounter to this encounter? And so for much of the time, my husband was around me during this, and I want to say like 15 seconds, I was like, oh my God. And then I would stop, pause, I would fast forward, I'd play, I'd realize I went too far because I missed something. And then surprisingly, somehow I missed something because I was confused. And then I had to rewind back to the same part and fucking torture myself all over again. It was hard to listen to, no pun intended.
It is. And again, this is one of the better ones, because for the most part, they're just having this unexpected, like, very sexually charged encounter that neither of them were really prepared for. And had this been, like, a little bit later in the book, or
much
like
better.
set up a little bit, it is one of the better of the, and again, you're just like absolutely smacked because you just weren't expecting, like, because again, let me paint the scene. They're going into enemy territory. They have landed. A welcome party has come to collect them. They are literally going into the nest of the people that they think have been causing issues across their territory, and tried to, they think, kidnap his little sister.
They have
and
a
then
danger kink. Maria, stop kink shaming them. Stop it.
And then all of a sudden, a near sex scene is happening, and you're just like, whiplash, tonal fucking whiplash, because then the two of them have to like
straighten up, look normal,
but it works. And now he kind of smells like her, and they go out and people are like, you have a vampire wife, gross. And then they have dinner. She can't eat because vampires don't eat in public, and then at one point they need to get away and go into like one of the offices to get access to a computer, and they decided to use that she needs to go feed. So like at some point in the dinner, he was like, do you need to feed, wife? And she was like, yes I do. And they trot off, they go in, she's doing the stuff, the data and all the stuff is downloading onto the thing she has, and she's like, oh, we have a few more minutes, and then they hear someone coming.
Teacher, I have another academic question.
Oh God, yes?
Why did he go with her? Doesn't that bring more attention to the missingness? I mean, yes, she could have been like, you might reason, oh, what if somebody ran into her? He's the muscle, he'll stop her from being torn to shreds. But we're here in subterfuge. Would they not have had a plan of some sort at this? It just doesn't really make a lot of sense for them both to leave, because then the two guests are missing. Even if they're off to go feed, and they don't know how long it will like take, like the werewolves. So it could be for a while. It's in the middle of dinner. They decide to go do this.
Vampires only have to feed once a day. And like, if you were going to a formal dinner party, why would you pick, like, if I was the host, I'd be like, you couldn't have done that on the flight over. You guys also spent an extra 15 minutes coming out of the fucking plane. You didn't do it then, but anyway. they both... I'm so funny.
Oh my god, I'm dead. Yes, no, but exactly. You know, it doesn't really... again, how little can we write in between each sexual encounter?
And also, Allie, I don't think is actually interested in the politics or the actual, like, again, this is a suspension bridge. You need to have a metric fuck ton of suspension of disbelief to get through this book.
Yeah, because then everyone
they go to an office that they find that's empty. She's doing the thing, and then they hear someone
May I please? So once again, we come to encounter yet another cliche. Poorly handled, that is, as well. They decide, because the data is taking too long to download, and they need just a little bit more time, that they should just pretend to make out.
They hear someone coming down the hall.
And not just pretend, well, of course.
No, not pretend to make out. Not pretend to make out.
No, I know, that's where I'm getting at. But it really means they're going to make out. And so, the pretending being that this was the purpose that they came here for.
No.
In this office. No, they're pretending that she had to go feed and that they came into a random room and that she was feeding. That, first of all, if I was a werewolf person, very suspicious of their presence in my territory, I would not believe that they were in my boss's office.
Vampires drink blood bags. They just drink blood bags, and they're sitting there in this office like,
Maria,
oh,
they
wow.
don't know anything. They live in the dark times. The werewolves don't know anything. And so anyway, she drinks from him, and it's a massively erotic experience. My God, doesn't she orgasm?
She orgasms. He, I think, almost orgasms, because he's having a religious sexual experience. She's having a religious sexual, like the two of them. It's just like Erotic Town 5000. She's sucking from his neck. He's like, more, take more, and then they're like touching and doing the bump and grind.
They're basically dry humping each other, and then these poor werewolf people are like, "Oh, oops, sorry."
oh God, she was feeding. I didn't realize that men should be feeding from him. And then like they go, and then later, what's her face? Emery comes in and is like, "Guys, we were waiting for you for dessert." And and in her head, she's like, "We kind of already had dessert." Like, it's just the weirdest scene, because like it just gets so sexual so quickly, and like, because you also just had that other sexual scene, so it's not like you had the scene on the plane and now they're just gonna let that sit with you for a while and things go back to normal. No, that same day they have this experience.
I mean, if I were Misery, I might think, oh wait, well, if she was looking, that is Serena, her best friend, who's the whole purpose of why she got married in the first place and is here. If she wanted to learn more about Serena, wouldn't she maybe also try to learn more about the Loyalists? Because what if they had something to do with her disappearance because she was involving herself with werewolves? It would make a whole lot of sense for Misery to take this opportunity to learn more about their structure. But again, it's porn, not plot.
The book also does this thing where it gives you fake stakes, and then deals with it very quickly. So, for instance, they build up this meeting as a very dangerous meeting where things could go wrong, and not just in normal circumstances would this meeting be dangerous, but they're also trying to get information from them and hack into their system, which makes it extra dangerous. And then, after this scene where they do the bump and grind while she feeds on him, he gets a phone call. Oh, Anna's sick. We have to leave tonight. And so the sum total of this dangerous interaction is them arriving, the scenting scene, then the dinner. Then all they do is they get the information. They're able to hack into Emery's system now. Anna's sick. Like, it's just, this book does this so much where it sets up an idea that something is going to be hard or difficult to deal with, and then it deals with it incredibly quickly, because this book has no interest in actually dealing with any consequences or tension, like, to such a degree that it is literally painful. It is
painful.
Yes, this is one of the instances. They go back to the house. Anna is sick. And they, werewolves don't get sick. And they don't know anything about human. And they can't Google
Yeah, they don't know human medicine, so they don't know what to give her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I have to calm myself a little bit. There are so many reasons why that's wrong. Also, I find it unlikely, fair, but unlikely, that Anna hasn't gotten sick before as a baby. And if this is her first major illness, why prior to this moment had they not looked into a doctor that they have on their payroll that keeps on the DL, and maybe even pushing aside the fact that the very notion that halflings don't exist, but why wouldn't they have a doctor on staff that specifically is studying her blood work to try to figure out things because Lo cares about it and would like to learn?
The book tells you that Lo has so much, he has so much influence that because our girl is like, I grew up with humans, I know it's either a bacterial infection or a viral infection, so she needs one of two types of medication.
She needs Tylenol.
And so, because they said they'll give her Tylenol, but she gives them, she recommends Tylenol and then an antibiotic and an antiviral. And you need normally a prescription for an antibiotic and an antiviral, but he's like, I don't need that. I can just get that from human pharmacies. So
why don't you have a doctor on staff already?
You've known since your sister was younger that she is half human. Why don't you have a human doctor that you have in your... what Katie brought up is so fucking... It annoyed me when I read this. You didn't plan for this? You don't have a medical professional that you trust, or even a werewolf doctor that you were like, hey, I need you to study up human medicine. The internet exists!
No, but we had to have the scene where Misery is like, I lived with humans and I'm trying to help, and this is going to be you guys feeling ingratiated to me. So, I'm sorry, that was awful. So anyway, so the kid gets better, and then they're like, oh wow, Misery, thanks a lot, that's great. What would we have done without you? It's because we never thought about this before.
And also, Google child fever, what to do? The internet would immediately be like, she needs an antiviral or an antibiotic, and then you could have just gotten it. I hate this book. I hate how
put potatoes around her neck so that way it absorbs the bad energy out of her.
Or in her socks. Puts onion slices in her socks and some vapor
you know what would have been vaguely funny is if no, actually, there's no way I could reason that in there. Never mind.
It's a dumb scene, and it's manufacturing goodwill and trying to bring them closer. And then
what happens after that? Is that when she gets poisoned?
She gets poisoned, yeah. So what's her face gets better. Everyone is hip hap happy. But then while eating peanut butter, our girl gets poisoned because Lo put a peanut butter jar in her blood fridge, and also. Who the fuck keeps peanut butter in the fridge?
Nobody! Fucking nobody.
Is it that peanut butter that separates? I don't understand. Peanut butter is really hard to eat out of the fridge.
And she eats it raw.
Yeah, just cold, out of the fridge. But anyway, and she's eating it, and somebody is poisoned the peanut butter, and she's sick, and then they have to get a vampire doctor because they could get a vampire doctor but not a human doctor, and then everybody's worried, what if this sparks a vampire werewolf war because people think it was them that did it, but then the doctor's like, she'll be fine.
More importantly, this initiates the act where Lo gets overly protective and turns into his wolf form and won't leave her side because he loves her.
And she's like, wow, you're really nice to me for a guy who has a fucking mate he's obsessed with. Fuck my life. But yeah, so she's out, and then she enters, she goes into a coma thing, and the guy's like, listen, when she wakes up, she's gonna need a lot more blood than usual for a while. And they don't just have it waiting. It is insane to me how 2 days go by and she's like, I actually need some blood, guys. But anyway, and they have she's weak and feeble. He runs her a bath. Things start getting sexual. They start doing shit together.
Something just occurred to me.
Yeah.
It's specifically stated that she has to have blood every day. Mm-hmm. A specific amount. What do they do if vampires are in a coma? Do they not put an IV drip or have a feeding tube? Wouldn't they have a feeding tube for them? She would have a feeding tube, and that would have been a fun scene of her pulling out the feeding tube too. How did she live?
So it's that I'm less, because humans can survive a coma without food for a couple of days. I'm less worried about that than the fact that the doctor literally said when she wakes up, she needs to feed. And like, she's awake multiple times and she has to go by herself to her blood fridge to find fucking blood. Like, they didn't just have it ready.
Not very thoughtful of her mate.
Not very thoughtful of her mate, but he does put her in the bath and like goes to town on her downstairs mix-up, and she's like, "This great." But anyway, they start doing shit, and then I'm gonna fast forward. So like, they're obviously into each other. They're doing shit together. Like, things are getting kind of hot and heavy. There's literally a scene where like they're kind of talking about stuff, and her brother calls her, can immediately tell her and Lo are going at it and like into stuff, and he's like, "Ew, gross. Deal with that." But he's like, "Yo, I've been talking with Gabby, the werewolf that's been here, and we've been looking into Serena for you, and somebody broke into Serena's apartment a couple of days ago, but the security footage was fucked with, so we're looking into it." And she's like, "Oh my god, thanks, bro. That's super chill of you for doing." And here I'm gonna mention one of the ways in which, as a story, this doesn't work, because Owen is presented as kind of her jokey brother at first, like, and in the first scene, he just kind of reads like standard brother, but then you learn that they have barely spent any time together. They were siblings up until the age of 8, like they were twins, and then that's when she was sent to be collateral. She came back, and then Owen just kept his distance for most of her time that she was back in the vampire realm or space before she went back into the human space for college with Serena. And so they've basically not spent any time with each other, and they don't read as siblings that's the case. And multiple times they have, like, there's this one point where they're having a conversation and she needs him to understand what she's saying, and she's like, "As twins, we're able to get each other's signals and stuff." And I'm like, y'all are like basically strangers. And for this book to pull what it's going to do with Owen, they needed to be close siblings. Like, they needed to be actual people who liked each other, and he needed to be a much more significant character.
Maria, this is the arc where everybody starts to love her and get angry at those who abused her, even though some of them were the ones that abused her. Yeah, they get the scene too where Owen's like, "Hey, we need to meet up. There's something I have to tell you, and I can't say it over the phone." So only Lo and her go out, meet him, and Gabby's there for some.
Yeah.
No idea why. And while she's there, there's this whole moment where she's like, "Oh, this is Lo meeting up with his mate. This is going to be so uncomfortable for me, blah, blah, blah." And Owen at this point reveals, "Hey, I'm going to do a coup against Father. It's because I wanted to have the council seat, because why not? Funsies." And basically, really, legitimately. Yep. And so after this, they're still in the human territory, right? And they get, they're near her apartment. She's like, "Oh, we're near."
A couple of things to preface before this. Number one, prior to this scene and this stuff happening, there's a scene where she talks to Owen about, is there any repercussions for feeding out of someone who's alive? And he's like, there's not negative repercussions per se, but you two will get really attached to each other. Like, it is only for like, it is only if you want to be romantically attached to someone. Like, that's what this is. And she's like, "Oh shit." So she tells Lo, because at one point he's like,
makes sense.
She's like, "Oh yeah." Lo's like, "You should feed from me," because he was like, "That was fucking great." And she was like, "We need to talk about that." And she tells him, and he's like, "Okay, and isn't that kind of already what we're doing?" And so she's like, "So you're okay."
It's all established that they are both very interested in each other and would like to have some sort of relationship.
In an emotional level, because she's like, "This isn't just sexual, it becomes emotional." And he's like, "I think we're already there, bro."
And he knows it himself as well.
Yes.
Like, he knows that she's his mate and everything. So this is all seeming like a done deal.
And then when she meets Gabby, and when Lo meets Gabby, she's like, "Wow, Lo, his facial expression hasn't changed." Because, like, even though I've only spent 3 weeks with him, I can read all of his facial expressions, and I know when he's agitated or into something. And he's just, like, real neutral with Gabby. And then he can't even remember what Gabby's major was in college. And there's a point when they first get to the apartment where she's like, because like Kitty was saying, they go to her apartment, and she's like, what was my major in college? And he immediately just knows it, and she's like,
Not just her major, but her minor as well.
And she's like, I'm gonna put that in my pocket for later. And she's like, it's like we're dancing around something. And but Katie, if you would like to take
yes,
the
because this is the scene that where I Maria wasn't at this yet, and I texted her. I was like, all right, I really would DNF this book at this point if I hadn't already, if I could. They're in her apartment. He's overwhelmed by the extreme smell of her in there. It's so hot, I'm sure. Steamy, sexy, really setting the scene. Even though she's just in her lonely ass apartment and she's looking at it meanwhile and like, wow, it looks minimalist.
She has a lava lamp.
And this would have been a really fun moment otherwise. But anyway, I'm going to push past that. So anyway, they engage or they attempt to engage in coitus. When they are all getting hot and heavy, she's like, put it in me. And he's just like, I can't.
She's like, do you have a condom? And he's like, we don't need a condom. And she's like, the fuck you mean we don't need a condom, bro? I know safe sex when I watched the...
She brings up a good point. She's like, well, there's half werewolf, half human hybrids. Why can't there be other hybrids? That's a great point. That's very smart. And he's like, nah, bitch, it's fine.
Well, no, he's like, we don't have to worry about that. It's not going to work that way for us. And she's like, what you mean we can't have... And he basically at first was like, we can't do penetrative sex. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, and she literally looks at his dick in his jeans and is like, it's big, but it's normal. Like, you don't have like a monster schlong. Like, you're not gonna tear open my rib cage. Like, we're not organ grinding.
And he's just like, well, we're just not, there's a reason. And he's like dancing around it.
Yeah,
we're not genetically compatible. Yes.
And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'll show you.
Yes, which is disgusting. They're having sex. Not penetrative sex. And she's giving him a hand job. And as she's giving him a hand job, he starts to swell. And thus we are introduced to the concept of nodding. And it is really, like, it's just so grotesquely described. He's like, oh yeah, hold it there. It's so disgusting. And it's a gross scene. And anyway, I'm gonna just like, Maria, you can fill in the gaps in a second if you'd like. But what gets me in this scene is that they're having gross sex, and he comes on her,
like her lower back, literally her lower back, because he'd been taking it from behind.
He smears it into her skin, and is like, oh, now everybody will know you're mine. And then get ready for literally the slap in the face with the trout, because she's like, I've been thinking, and I'm putting all the pieces together, and I'm your mate, aren't I?
Because prior to this scene, they realize, she's like, Gabby's not your mate. And he's like, you thought Gabby was my mate? And he was like, oh, wow, I would never have brought you to her like that. Like, I am so sorry you thought that. And she's like, no, it's okay. I shouldn't have assumed. This guy said something, but, whatever. And so she knows it, and she's putting it together. But also, really quick, before we dive into that, I just want to point out that in a book that has so tangentially played with the concept of werewolves, outside of seeing Lo as a werewolf once prior to this point, there's no real difference. Like, it's not like werewolves are just generally bigger, hairier, or like, they're like,
they're not like mountain women and men that like or
that they have such a sensitive smell that like she can't wear perfume and she was used to wearing perfume, or like
there's no world building on that regard. It's all, again, Maria used it so well. Ornamental, superficial, all those words, vestigial, all of those are perfect words for the plot build or the world building points in this book.
Yes.
But continue.
And so when you come into this thinking it's going to be a paranormal romance, especially based on the cover, you think it might be a dark paranormal romance, and you're immediately like, oh no, this isn't. You kind of forget. And there is, as someone who read fan fiction back in the day,
and a lot of werewolf fan fiction at that.
Specifically, I read one. So there was one ship I was really into for a period of time after season 2 of Sherlock, and I was I'm sure I'll get torn about this because it's such a weird ship. But I liked Sherlock and Molly Hooper. I loved it. I just loved it. But anyway, and there was this one author I really liked who wrote some good Sherlock, and she wrote a slightly Omega-verse one, but it was a Vampire Molly, Werewolf Sherlock thing. So it was basically this thing, but written way better. And the thing is, when you've read enough werewolf or Omegaverse fan fiction, you know about nodding. And so going into this, knowing that Ali Hazelwood had written fan fiction, and seeing how vestigial and ornamental all of the world building was, you were like, okay, we're obviously not going to go there, because she's not playing into any of that stuff.
No, she is. And as somebody as well who unfortunately got suffused with Teen Wolf fan fiction.
Yeah, she did.
That I won't go into at all. But let me just tell you, my library of fan fiction bookmarks for that exclusively included over 100 bookmarks. So much. But there's also a lot of really solid, good writing that just wasn't even romance too. But anyway, point being, there are tropes. And it really, especially based on my preconceptions, not that this has anything to do with whether it should be allowed or not, but based off of love theory or whatever, was not, thank you, love hypothesis, theory hypothesis. But I was not expecting this level of
abject horniness,
just graphicness, because it's not fun, and neither one of them have personalities during the sex. It's not like intimate like that. It's just literally flesh on flesh.
There's this thing that happens where you have, because even in Love Hypothesis, the character Adam is kind of like this loner,
lone wolf.
He's just like, he's keeps to himself. He's quiet. When he says stuff, he can kind of be like unintentionally cheeky, and he's a bit sarcastic. But during his sex scene, he just turned into every like fan fiction ideal of a man during sex, which is just the worst. Saying things like, yes, good, take it, you're so fucking hot, like just it's just the worst. Like I people need to talk less in sex scenes. Especially because it's not they don't sound like the specific characters.
No, they don't. It's literally porn for porn.
Yes, there is a sex scene that I think it's like the only sex scene Naomi Novik has ever put to pen, and it is in Uprooted, and it is great because the characters are still the characters during the scene. Things that have plagued them,
much hotter.
And
that's
it's
so much hotter.
Much better. It is such a good sex scene because they're still the things that have plagued them, that things that come up in their personality show up in the sex, you know, the ways in which they like, and it just works so much better. But here it's just, nope, it's just sex.
It's like gore. It's like gore. That's how graphic it is.
And it's just, anyway, so he comes on her back. There, as Katie said, she's like, so I've been thinking about it, and so she wasn't your thing, and you said it's like a gut reaction, and I remember the way I smelled, and she's like, I'm your mate, aren't I? And he's like, oh no. And she's like, what do you mean? No, I've thought about it. I've put it all together. I'm your mate.
I want you all to picture him scuttling backwards and being like,
oh, I didn't mean to lead you on. I didn't realize you thought we were like that. Like, that's not what this relationship is.
I would never do that with you.
Yeah, we're not, because she was asking about nodding, because he, like, the nodding happens, he comes on her back, and she's like, does that happen every time werewolves have sex? And for someone who out of nowhere has suddenly decided he doesn't want her to know that she's his mate, he's answering everything way too honestly, because he's like, it only happens sometimes for werewolves, not all the time. And she's like, between mates, right? And he's like, let's not. But anyway, he basically, girl boss gaslights her into thinking that no, he wasn't even romantically interested in her. They were just having sex for good times. And he was like, I shouldn't have led you on. We shouldn't have done this.
And he's really nasty about it. And then he's like,
and she is shocked.
It's really absurd. It's because he becomes immediately an alien, and he's just like, yeah, I'll leave you here, and someone will come pick you up.
Yeah, you shouldn't live with me anymore.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, I was so, I just couldn't understand it. I had to listen to it 3 times thinking I missed something.
And she's standing there in a t-shirt with cum on her back, drying into her skin.
I would never forgive him. Never.
sure, this would be over, done with. We'd have to have the reconciliation in book 2 kind of thing. Like, and it would be like 5 years later.
I have read scenes like this in fan fiction where this happens. And I'm just like, to protect the other person. And we haven't said this, but at the beginning of each chapter, you get 1 or 2 lines from Lo's perspective. And the line for this chapter or the next chapter after is like, what she didn't know is that it hurt me a whole more, that it like hurt her. And I'm like, what the fuck?
And he was like, and I hope she'd never find out. And it's so dumb, because the smarter thing to do would be to say, actually, yes, you are my mate, but nobody can know, because then they're going to use you against me. So we need to be very careful about your whereabouts, because I am incredibly compromised. Instead of letting her live in ignorance, like, the smart from a strategic point of view is to be honest.
So far, he has been nothing but upfront with her. Every single part of his character has nothing to do with this kind of reaction. There's absolutely no reason she shouldn't know this. The only reason he would want her not to know this is because there's no reason. There's no reason she shouldn't know this.
And it's like, it is just so fucking out of nowhere.
He justifies it even worse, everyone. He justifies it in the weakest ass way. He ends up saying, ready yourselves. All right, ready yourselves.
Gird your loins.
I did not, this is him speaking, and this is me speaking from him. I did not want to trap you in a relationship. You've never been free, Misery, so I didn't want you to think that you couldn't leave me because you wanted to make me happy, because you knew that mates were like a really important thing, and that if you didn't stay with me, then I wouldn't be happy, and I knew you would stay with me because I knew you would want me to be happy, and I would never want to trap you in a relationship. Like 15-year-old thinking, if anything, and even then, where did you get this idea?
And also, she's so obviously into him. She literally was like, hey, if I keep drinking from your blood, I'm gonna fall in love with you. And he was like,
and he's like, right back at you.
Let's go, Pikachu. I love this for us. And like, this whole time she's been so, and in this moment, she's so happy to be like, it's me, isn't it? Like, and even then she's like, but I want, like, what are you talking about? And she's so hurt. She's literally, again, in a shirt with cum drying on her back, looking like a kicked puppy, so much that when she turns to go shower, he grabs her wrists, mouths "I love you" into her forehead because she looks so sad. Like, are you an idiot? She was obviously in love with you, so your entire "I didn't want you to be trapped with me" makes no fucking sense, you asshole.
He was already so one note, but to add that to it, it's just a pity fest. And truly, she is aptly named because she is a miserable character. There's like, anyway, let's get past this part. Anyway, that was the most egregious scene to me.
It is terrible, especially because we're gonna undo it in literally 20 pages. It's insane because it's not even like they sit with this, they have to face the consequences. Again, this book is allergic to tension. This book is allergic to consequences. This is a scene that should have profound consequences to their relationship and the makeup of how things work, and yet it doesn't, and we will see that momentarily. Anyway, so she goes to shower. Mick, the older werewolf who she's friendly with, comes to pick her up and take her to meet wherever Lo is, because Lo had to go do something. Because in the middle of all this, he got a phone call and he was like, hey, I have to go deal with this. I'll get Mick to pick you up, blah, blah, blah. So she's with Mick and she's like, oh, da-da-da, and talking about Anna. And then all of a sudden he stabs her with a needle and drugs her. And he's like, sorry, they have my son. And she's like, oh, Jacques, it was Mick the whole time. He was the mole. And it's just so obvious. Like, there's a scene earlier where he's like, my son is dead and I miss him a lot. And you're like, it's fucking Mick. Someone is using... Like, it's fucking Mick. But anyway, and she gets plopped in a wooden attic room that has a bunch of bookshelves and, like, a couch and stuff. And who should be there but Serena? Her and Serena are reunited. Serena has been locked in this attic for the past 3 months and 5 days. And they're like, oh my God. And Serena's like, so I need to tell you some stuff. And she's like, no, I figured it out. And so I didn't go into any of this, but what they discover is that the guy that is Anna's father, Anna's mom had told him, hey, we have a daughter, and he didn't do anything at first. And then he figures it out, and the governor, like, there's this whole thing where they find out that the governor kind of knew stuff and then got Liliana's father killed, and this whole thing, and basically they think, our girl Serena was looking into this whole situation, and that's how she got captured. And so she basically tells Serena what she thinks the story is, and Serena doesn't correct her. But Serena's like, listen, we're obviously in werewolf territory. The guards are werewolf. I'm going to need you to thrall the guards so we can get the fuck out of here.
Let's pause for a moment. Serena, in not a good way, is the spitting image of Misery. They are the same exact character, duplicated. And while I could appreciate them having characteristics that were similar, considering they're basically sisters, she speaks the same. She does the same things. It's the same character, but not her. And It's really boring.
So the two of them create this plan. They try to thrall the guy. It doesn't completely work, but they're able to grab his hand, and like Serena breaks his thumb and one of his other fingers, and then they lock him in. They go out. They realize, no, we're not in were territory. We're actually in a skyscraper. We're in the nest. We're in vampire territory. And Vanya's like, hello, Misery. I guess I have to take you to your father one last time. So they go, and her father's like, cackle, cackle. It's me. I'm the mustache twirling, because Mick's standing behind him. And he's like, I'm the mustache twirling villain the whole time. So you see, actually, Serena is a werewolf, is a half werewolf, half human. And that's why I stuck her with you, because like, if you have a half werewolf, half human child that you don't want anyone to know about, you might as well stick him with your daughter, because she just presented as a human. And then I realized
that doesn't make any sense for me. Also, if he's that like maniacal and such, it would make more sense for me personally if he ordered a study on her, or she was under observation because he wanted to look, because that's literally what he wants to learn, or use them, learn more about them, use them in some way. And this is the moment where all these political things come together, and her father basically just wants to have control. That's it. He just wants to continue control. That's it. We're just going to summarize it all.
And also, Serena's actually from Europe and was bought here. And so her dad's known about the hybrids for a while. But anyway, and he's like, and Serena, you can't turn into a werewolf. You can't turn into a wolf. But you started, and then he was like, but this all relied on Serena not realizing what she was. And then because I spy on her all the time, I realized that she had figured it out. She was beginning to figure it out, and I couldn't have that, so we had to kidnap her. And that's when we found out about Liliana Moreland. And you know, so we had to try kidnap her to get her as well. And they were like, and we couldn't let the humans find out about her, because then if the werewolves and the humans find out we can shapeshift, sorry, that's a different meme. If the werewolves and the humans find out they can make babies, then they're going to want to be their own team, and then we'll be sad and lonely by ourselves.
This is so fucking dumb.
It's so dumb. Anyway, and then they bring Lo in, and he's being led by Owen, and Owen's doing like cack, and you're like, no, Owen's on their side. There must be a plan here. But anyway, and Dad is like evil monologuing about how he is going to get, because there's two options for old Lo. And he basically is like, I found another way to get leverage over Lo. And it's you, daughter. You're so useful. You're his mate. And she's like, no, I'm not. Lo, tell them I'm not. And he's like,
silence, crickets.
Even though I lied to you 20 minutes ago, like literally on the same day I lied to you, I can't lie in front of all of these other people now.
Can we just appreciate the fact as well that once again, poor Misery, like, nobody likes her, boo-hoo. And it's like the facade of that. And then it's like, wha-bam. Just kidding. Well, okay, hold on a second. What happens is that there's code that Serena speaks in their little butterfly language. And she's like, yo, I can shift. And everyone's like, what the fuck did she just say? And so then Misery tells
conveys
Lo
that in a code.
Yes, and is like, yeah, I really hope Anna grows up well. It's because her father is gonna kill her. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like I'll either you tell me where Anna is or I kill. Tell me where Anna is, and Anna won't die, but I will just, be in control of her life, and then you get your mate, or I kill your mate if you don't tell me where Anna is. Yes.
And so then Misery is basically like, well, I never will get to tell Anna this, but tell her, she's great, and that she'll sooner or later shift when she turns 25 or so. And hello, that it's supposed to inference that, Serena can shift. And then, well, bam, they shift. And then they kill the dad, and that's it. But no, they don't kill him. They don't kill him.
It's such a cutaway because, he's like, now, and takes off the handcuffs. And then she's like, and then I watched these two white wolves, my mate, or my husband and my best friend, absolutely take everyone down, and it's just, and then it just cuts away, so you don't even get, this book is so committed to not dealing with anything, and the next scene is literally her and Alex joking around about the fact that she didn't realize that the clothing stayed on them when they shifted. She literally just got people get torn limb from limb, including one of the people she's known her whole life, Vanya, her father's aide.
Lo doesn't say shit to her after this, except for, do you have any questions about what's just happened? Who does that? A robot does that. Nobody does that. He would have taken her side based off what little we've been given of his personality.
Which is goodest boy who always does the good thing.
He literally was a mature adult prior to all this, or at least that's what he paraded around as. And so then it just goes, we have a time skip, and it's just her and Serena best bonding, and her chilling out and recouping her mental energy. And then we get towards our end.
Because, she realizes that Lo, while she was recouping, has already left, and he went back home. And she was like, oh, I guess I stay here. And her brother's like, you
just
live
fucked
wherever
off.
Yeah, he literally just went back to wolf territory. Because she even says to her brother, hey, where's Lo? I want to talk to him about something. Because Serena, she's feeling a little lost. She doesn't know a lot of stuff. And she was like, you know what? I think Serena and Anna would benefit from knowing each other, so I want to make this connection. So she's like, let me go talk to Lo. And then she finds out Lo's gone, and she's like, well, I guess I don't live with him anymore. And then she decides, fuck it, I'm taking Serena into wolf territory so she can get, and I'm just going and I'm going to confront them. And she goes to her room and she sees all of her things have been packed up into little boxes. And there's also a scene where her brother is like, of course I would do all this, and I'm serious. Your dad sacrificed you, and I could never forgive myself. And it's like, oh wow, he was motivated by the fact that his sister was taken when she was 8, even though he spent the past 20 years not trying to actively build a relationship with his sister, but instead planned a coup. It's really dumb. But anyway, and she goes and she's like, everything's packed up, and she sees Lo, and Lo's so happy she's there. And she's like, I know you packed up my stuff, but I'm here. And he's like, oh no, I was installing Windows. And then they also have a conversation about their last conversation where she's like, I cannot believe you did that. That was such a dick move. And he was like, listen, I just didn't want you to feel, as Katie said, pressured that you had to be my mate.
That whole spiel was given to her.
And she's like, no, but what about my feelings? You don't get to choose. I get to choose what I want. And if I'm in love with you, like any relationship, we explore this. And basically it's just shoved under a rug. They have sex and they do the nodding. They commit to the bit. And please note, I read this. So I was at the hospital with my sister last night until about 11 o'clock at night. So I am driving home.
What a fever dream.
Yes. I'm driving home listening to the last hour of this, and so it's 11:55 at night, and this scene is happening, and I'm just I'm so tired and hungry. I didn't eat dinner. I don't want this.
You're being waterboarded at the store.
It was so terrible, and I was so angry. By the time I got home, I was no longer tired, so I had to I watched the last episode of A Man on the Inside, which was very cute and adorable and did help calm me down. But it's just listening to this scene, and because she's like, no, I want to do it. If we're going to do this, we have to commit and see how it works. And he's like, he's like, no, you need to acknowledge and say what it is. She's like, not. And he's like, say it again. And she's like, not.
And also, for all the worrying, which is valid, I guess, if it really does get all that big, she's just like, yeah, I just feel, I just feel full. Again, question for somebody who has no sexual experience at all. She's just like, yeah, I'm chill, bro.
And like they cannot disengage, and they're just like, and it's just it's a whole ass thing. And she falls asleep, they wake up, and then like they do it again, and he's like, yeah, I'm putting in vampire windows for you in out the whole house. And she's like, that's expensive. And he's like, I've got the money for it.
Why didn't you do this weeks ago?
And then the book basically ends with Serena has come to the house, and it's the day Anna comes back, and Anna was with Cohen. And let me tell you, Cohen and Owen both existing so close.
You never even heard about Cohen this whole time, because that's how little he matters.
He doesn't matter. He's the alpha from a different pack who partially raised our boy Lo. But anyway, and Cohen was taking care of Anna in a secret location. And so Cohen comes back and he brings Anna. Anna's so happy to see Misery, who she can't say the name of. And she says Mercy. It's the way she says Misery's name is harder to say.
Mercy would be a great name.
So Cohen comes in, and immediately as he walks into the house, he's like hit by a ton of bricks. And he's like, bah, bah, bah. And this is from Lo's perspective. It's so fucking funny. And he's like, he's watching his friend, like, inhaling, like, yeah,
like that? He's like having a fit.
Yeah. And then he looks over, and his eyes glue onto Serena Paris, our main character's best friend, who's basically the same character as her, playing on the floor. And Cohen's like, I'm fucked. And our boy Lo is like, well, this is gonna be complicated. End book one. You didn't know it was gonna be a series. We're gonna get Serena and Cohen's love story the next time. I know you're so excited.
You know what's sad? I still have to say, what is that? I always forget the name of it. That dragon book I told you about that I read in freshman year of college.
Oh, I don't remember.
What is it? He's a dragon. Dragon something.
We should read that. We should do it.
Oh my god, yes. Okay, so from memory, granted, this is it's basically a decade. Yeah, it's a decade ago. I read this book. Oh, Dragon, actually, is I think what it's called. And it's just porn. And yet, from memory, that is, I think it was more entertaining than this, which, if it was, that's wild, because that book is genuinely just porn. You can tell, right? I mean, look, we got barbarian woman and dragon with big cock. Like,
no, listen, I'm just gonna put it out there. I respect a book that is committing to the bit from the beginning. This book has tonal whiplash.
You know what's nice about Dragon, actually, is that it doesn't take itself seriously to begin with, and slowly but surely, because it's just a series. It's because it's like, he has like a million siblings. She has like, no, not she. There's other characters though mentioned. And so there's like a ton of books, and each one is a new romance, almost Nora Roberts style. But what's funny is that each book gets more and more plot heavy.
It's kind of funny. That happens a little bit with the Ice Planet Barbarian books, because that's basically the setup. There's the main couple, and then the next book is about a different couple, and the next book's about a different couple, and then but yeah, I'm okay. Like, I find the Ice Planet Barbarians books much less egregious than this, because it just commits. Like, the first half of this book makes you think that the plot, the intrigue, that stuff is going to be more important. It tricks you. And then the second half is like, just
rude.
Kidding. That stuff was paper thin, and we're never going to explore any of it. And we're basically here about nodding. That's the core of this book is, can she take it?
And she could. And that's the end of this book.
And surprise, there's going to be a sequel that we didn't want. But yeah, that's it. This has been a long video. I think we're 2 hours and 30 minutes in. Congratulations, Katie. We did it. It was terrible. I literally, I cannot explain to you what a fever dream driving home at 11 o'clock at night in just trying to get home after spending 4.5 hours in a hospital.
You didn't deserve
ER.
that.
You didn't
deserve that.
I'm so nice.
I don't know, man. Guys, read it if you want, if you've made it this far. It's a ride. I have to say, it's not the worst book we've read, but it's certainly in the low 10 someplace.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would say that on the S tier list, I would put this as a solid D.
Anyway, Allie, see this video? I'm sorry, bud. It just didn't
wasn't
cut it for me.
We were way better, and Love Hypothesis, I think, was her first one. This is after that. I don't know how we got down here. But anyway, I don't think we should read that dragon book, though.
Next time it's a you-me thing. Let's do dragon, actually.
Done. Join us the next time for some porn with no plot and some fun times. This has been Katie and Maria's Chaos Hour. And by hour, I mean 2.5 hours. We love you. Bye!